All right, let's just dive right into this explainer and completely challenge that old-school assembly line mentality of work. For decades, the legacy of scientific management, think of Henry Ford's factories, basically treated workers like cogs in a machine. You were told exactly what to do, and you did it, no questions asked. But today, we live in these complex, hyper-fast environments where that static model just completely falls apart. To actually survive and innovate, we need to build a dynamic, modern teamwork toolkit.
So, I've got to ask you, what actually separates a group of workers from a truly fearless team? We've all been there, right? We've all seen the dysfunctions, the departmental silos, the hidden mistakes, the quiet resentments bubbling under the surface, the burnout. Honestly, we've all seen groups of totally isolated individuals just pretending to be teams. Our goal today is to move past all of that. We're going to give you 4 concrete, actionable techniques to fix those exact dysfunctions and fundamentally change how your people work together.
Here is our roadmap to build this toolkit. We'll hit 4 pillars. First, cultivate psychological safety. Second, master workplace appreciation. Third, play to your niche. And fourth, ask who, not how.
Let's jump straight into pillar number 1, cultivate psychological safety, or teaming without fear.
Harvard professor Amy Edmondson has done some incredible, extensive research on transitioning from static, traditional teamwork to dynamic, continuous teaming. And she defines psychological safety as a climate where people feel free to express relevant thoughts and feelings without any fear of being penalized. Now look, a lot of people hear the word safety and instantly think, oh great, so no accountability? But that is absolutely not it. The crucial point here is that this isn't about lowering your standards or being totally immune from consequences. Rather, it's about creating the interpersonal freedom to take risks. It means your employees can raise their hand to ask a question, ask for help, or actually admit a mistake without panicking about what their colleagues or their boss will think of them.
And this is exactly why it's the foundation. You simply cannot have these 4 pillars of teaming if people are afraid to talk about mistakes. Think about it for a second. Candid communication and speaking up honestly totally depends on a lack of fear. If your team is literally terrified of looking incompetent, there is no way they're going to experiment with new solutions. They won't collaborate across departmental silos, and they certainly won't reflect on a failed project to see what went wrong. They'll just sweep the failure right under the rug and pretend it never happened.
Okay, so how do we as leaders actually pull out this untapped knowledge and explicitly make it safe to fail? 3 steps. Step 1, frame the work. You absolutely must proactively set expectations about uncertainty. It's like what Astro Teller at Google X observed. You have to convince your team that you are pro-learning, not just pro-failure. Step 2, invite participation. Don't just sit back and assume people will speak up. Ask direct, non-leading questions to actively draw them out. And step 3, respond productively. When someone does stick their neck out and admits a mistake, you have to destigmatize it. Thank them for the input, look forward, and brainstorm the next steps instead of just pointing fingers.
Moving right along to our second section, master workplace appreciation. Or, as I like to look at it, the languages of being offended.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how we can handle human dynamics using Gary Chapman and Paul White's appreciation frameworks. By mapping these out, we can diagnose underlying relational issues at work because, get this, the way people feel appreciated is usually exactly the same way they get offended. For example, if a colleague's primary language is words of affirmation, they aren't just motivated by praise, they are highly sensitive to corrective verbal feedback. If someone values quality time, they will be genuinely hurt and offended if they aren't invited to the team lunch. And if someone thrives on acts of service, handing them a generic good job card means literally nothing if you then leave them totally unsupported on a massive, time-sensitive task. Understanding this is a game changer. It helps you see exactly why a coworker might suddenly seem a bit prickly.
But, friction is still going to happen. And when it does, the solution always begins with active listening. You need to repeat what a colleague said to show you truly understand them, even if you fundamentally disagree. But here's the catch. Active listening also means accounting for cultural differences. This is so important. Research shows that in the UK, for instance, feedback is often heavily cushioned. They'll focus on what a person is doing well before ever moving to what needs improvement. But in many Latin American cultures, the norm might be much more direct, getting right to the action that needs improving. If you don't actively listen and account for those cultural norms, your well-meaning attempts to resolve an offense might actually just create a massive new one.
All right, let's shift gears to section 3, play to your niche. This is all about the goal versus the role. Drawing from John Maxwell's laws of teamwork, we have to look at this really interesting structural tension. We have to contrast the necessity of team sacrifice with the sheer power of individual strength, because both have to exist in harmony. On one side, we have the law of the big picture.
which says that winning teams have players who are willing to sacrifice their personal desires for the greater goal. But right next to it is the law of the niche, which reminds us that everyone has an area of maximum capability. I mean, think about it. If you have a brilliant accountant forced to make cold sales calls all day, or a creative visionary stuck doing administrative paperwork, it's a disaster. Morale erodes, and the team fails because people are playing completely out of position.
So to actually put this into practice at work, you have to align everyone to the big picture while making sure they are stationed exactly where their unique talents shine. You do this in 4 steps. First, communicate the vision continually. Don't just say it once at an annual retreat. Second, cultivate an attitude of service and teachability so that bench players are always ready to step up and support the starters. Third, accurately assess skills to make sure people are actually sitting in their specific niche. And finally, publicly honor and reward team play. When you loudly praise the sacrifices your teammates make for the common good, you reinforce that big picture for everyone.
And that brings us to our 4th and final pillar. Ask who, not how. This is the ultimate delegation paradigm.
Dan Sullivan's methodology here requires a massive, fundamental mindset shift. I want you to ask yourself honestly, are you constantly getting bogged down in the process of learning how to do tasks rather than finding the right who to execute them? See, whenever we face a new, complex problem, our absolute default is to ask, how do I do this? But figuring out the how eats up your time, your attention, and leads to massive decision fatigue. The paradigm shift is realizing that every invention or solution requires a creator, a who. There are countless brilliant people out there right now waiting and wanting to do the exact tasks that you are struggling with.
To actually implement this, use a specific tool called the impact filter. It's basically a one-page document designed to clearly define a project's purpose, its importance, and exactly what success looks like so your who can go off and figure out the how. Guys, this is the essence of true leadership. You don't micromanage the process. You use this framework to explicitly state what a winning outcome is and why it matters. Once that vision is powerfully laid out, you just hand it over to your who and get out of their way. Let them use their expertise to get it done.
Because here is the secret. Delegation is absolutely not exploitation. It's a mutually beneficial relationship where both parties transform and expand their visions together. There's this great quote that hits the nail on the head. There is no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. When you finally let go of your ego and share your vision, incredible things happen. You literally become a who to your team by providing them with a compelling cause and an opportunity to shine in their niche. And in return, they become your who by executing the vision and massively expanding your capabilities.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question. Come Monday morning, are you truly leading a cohesive, fearless team? Or are you just managing a group of isolated individuals? It's time to build an environment where it's safe to fail. It's time to learn the appreciation languages of your coworkers so you can bypass unnecessary friction. Structure your talent so absolutely everyone is playing in their niche, and please stop asking how when you really should be asking who. Implement this 4-pillar toolkit, and I promise you, you won't just have a group of workers anymore, you'll have an absolutely unstoppable team. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.